Well, hello there, and welcome to the last of three sessions we're doing for the 2020 CTSI Symposium. In this one, we're looking forwards at a new product that we've developed that we think will fill a really important gap in the market and will help you with some problems that you're struggling with at the moment. It's the trueCall SIM card. Now, you're probably familiar with the trueCall box. We launched it in 2008 and we sold it directly to the public. But starting around 2013, we started working with local authorities, particularly trading standards teams, with charities and also with police forces, and also with groups like the National Trading Standards Scams Team and Trading Standards Scotland. We provided the trueCall box to give protection to older and vulnerable people from nuisance calls, scam calls. The trueCall box will only protect landlines, and as time has gone on, the situation has changed. In the last 5 or 6 years, the problem of nuisance calls on mobile phones has just got greater. And this is for a number of reasons. It used to be that it cost significantly more money as a caller to make a call to a mobile phone than to a landline. And this discouraged call centres from making those sorts of calls. They tended to focus on landlines. But with new regulation, the telephone companies have had to reduce the fees they charge for linking to mobile phones. And now they're very much closer together. And the premium that a call centre has to pay to make a call to a mobile phone is much less. When I'm talking about call centres, I'm just using a very umbrella term here. I'm covering everything, starting from the large call centres that are making compliant calls through to call centres that maybe are not making compliant calls. Maybe they're breaking a few rules, through to those who are out and out scammers, right down to very small operations, maybe sort of boiler room operations of scammers where perhaps half a dozen people are working in an informal call centre environment. Second reason that nuisance calls are building up on mobile phone is because of the telephone preference service. Around 70% of landlines are registered on the telephone preference service. So for legitimate call centres that are abiding by the regulation, the number of people they can call legally and compliantly is very small on landlines. However, only 6% of mobiles are on telephone preference service list. So that means they've got a much bigger pool there that they can go after. And the third factor is the increase in homes that are mobile only. A lot of people are just using their landline at home for their broadband service, and they're not even plugging a telephone into it. Now, you'll probably be aware that on your own mobile phone, a number of call blocking services are available. But these are all based on block list technology, and this has got a lot of weaknesses and it's easily defeated by call centres and scammers. So at the very lowest level, the systems can have a personal block list. So that's to say, when you receive a nuisance call, you hang up on the caller and then you press a button on your phone to put that number onto your block list so they can never phone through to you again. The second approach is to look at the data from thousands of customers of a service. And if I and half a dozen other people mark a particular number as being a nuisance caller, then the system will effectively blacklist that number, so that if that number calls anyone else on the system, it will come up with a warning message saying that this might be a scam or a fraud call. The third approach on block lists is to do an analytic process, and this is what BT does. They analyse millions of calls that traverse the network, and they try to spot which numbers are nuisance calls by the patterns of the calling that they do. All of these are based on block list technologies, and block list technologies have a serious weakness. The serious weakness is pretty obvious. If a call centre keeps changing the phone number it's using, or maybe spoofs a different telephone number for every single call they make, then their calls are always going to get through, because these block list systems aren't going to have them marked as a nuisance number. We think that the best of these systems might be able to block half of nuisance calls. They might be able to. Nuisance calls are a lot easier to spot than scam calls, because of course the scammers are the people who are constantly changing their phone number and spoofing their phone number so they can't get identified. We believe that they probably only prevent about 25% of scam calls. And we don't think that these existing systems are enough to protect older and vulnerable people. We're blocking 95% plus of unwanted nuisance and 90% of unwanted scam calls on our trueCall boxes. And we use the same technology in our mobile system, and we believe it will work just as well. So we needed to build trueCall into mobile phones. What's the best way of doing that? Well, it's not possible to write a trueCall app. Apps have got limitations on them, and those limitations are applied by Apple for iOS devices and by Google for Android devices. They won't allow apps to access the bits of the phone that make and receive phone calls, or they only allow them very limited access to those areas. What they don't want is someone writing an app that makes lots of premium rate phone calls from your phone. So that's not possible. The only option open to us was to build trueCall into the telecoms network itself. We pitched this idea to all the main networks a couple of years ago, and they told us that they felt that this wasn't a particular problem. Nuisance calls were already blocked by the services they had in place. So really the only solution forward was for us to do it ourselves. So we've linked up with a small mobile operator, and we're providing a mobile telephone service with trueCall built into it called trueCall SIM. So this is a SIM card that when you plug it into your phone gives you the whole of the trueCall secure service. The service sits in the network. It's managed and monitored via a website, a control panel, and by a smartphone app, exactly the same way as you manage and control a trueCall device on your phone. And you'll find that all the features on the trueCall SIM are features that you're familiar with from your trueCall boxes, and there are some additional features too. Here's the trueCall app available on a mobile phone or smartphone. Now, we have 3 different variants of the trueCall SIM service to match 3 different groups of people who need nuisance call blocking. Okay. The first service we call Call Manager, and that's the same as the regular trueCall call blocker that people will buy from Amazon. It gives you very, very flexible call blocking, but we wouldn't recommend its use for people who are vulnerable or have any sort of reduced capacity. Then there is a secure version, and this is very similar to our trueCall Secure Bot that local authorities, police forces and charities buy and give out. This is specially optimised to meet the needs of older and vulnerable people. And the last product we've got is called Kids Line. Now you'll notice that children are getting their first mobile phone at younger and younger ages. I think the latest stats say that the average age for a first mobile phone is 8 years old. The problem is that literally anyone in the world can call that child. And as a parent, you want to protect them. So trueCall Kids Line is a fabulous system that we've developed. And what it does is it only allows calls through from numbers that the parents have approved. Anyone else who calls the child is redirected to the parent, who can speak to the caller, determine whether it's legitimate, and if it is, pass it on to the child. So there are 3 versions of trueCall SIM, but the one that we're concentrating on today is the one that's appropriate for you, which is the trueCall Secure unit. So let's have a look to see how trueCall SIM works. And to do this, we'll enlist the help of Jim here. Jim is an older and vulnerable person, and we're going to protect him from unwanted nuisance and scam calls by installing a trueCall SIM in his mobile. So how are his calls going to be handled? The problem for us is a call comes in, the caller is unknown, and trueCall first looks them up on its internal database. And in this case, it finds that the caller is on Jim's trusted list, his allow list, so trueCall allows that call to go through. Equally, we've got another caller here. I think you can see where this one's going. We check them on the database, and here we can see the caller is on Jim's block list. So their call is blocked with an announcement. Of course, those are the easy ones. The difficult ones are the unrecognised callers, and we've got a number of ways of handling those. 2 of these approaches you'll be familiar with from the trueCall unit, but there's a third new and exciting approach that's available on the trueCall Secure SIM. So the caller has come in, we've checked them on Jim's list, they're not recognised at all. So If Jim has the filter profile set up, trueCall will intercept the call with an announcement. If you're a friend, family member or invited caller, please press 5. If you're a cold caller, please hang up and don't call us again. Now this is extremely effective. It will block all automated calls, all silent calls because they can't press 5. A lot of call centres use answering machine detect technology, and that thinks that the call has been answered by an answering machine, so it hangs up. And telemarketers know that if you're screening calls in this way, you're very unlikely to want to buy their products, so it's in their own best interest to hang up. Of course, if it's a legitimate caller, they can just press the key and get straight through to Jim. Our analysis shows that 95% plus of nuisance calls are blocked by this method, and 91% plus of scam calls are blocked. The second option, to give Jim a lot more protection, is to use the trusted caller only approach. So if the caller is unrecognised, they're intercepted with an announcement. We only accept calls from friends and family members. If you need to get through to us, please hang up and call Sarah on 07712 345 678 or enter your code. So all unwanted calls are blocked by this. The only people who can get through are those who are on the allow list or who knows Jim's code. As you know, doctors and hospitals very often withhold their numbers, so Jim or his carers can give his caller's code to those organisations so that they can get straight through to Jim. Any other legitimate callers who are trying to get hold of Jim can just hang up and call Sarah, his daughter, on the phone number that's been given, and she can then go online and put their number onto Jim's trusted list so they can get straight through to him. That again is extremely successful. 100% of nuisance calls are blocked. 100% of scam calls are blocked because either the person is on the trusted caller list already, or they've been given the caller's code, or they've been approved by Sarah, Jim's daughter. The new mechanism we've got in trueCall Secure is called Screen via Carer, and this is a sort of a hybrid system, and it's very, very flexible. A caller comes in, they're not recognised, and just like in the filter profile, they're asked to press a key. And this will get rid of the majority of nuisance callers and scammers. If the caller does press the key, then something special happens. Instead of Jim's phone ringing, Sarah, his daughter, her phone rings. When she picks up, she hears an announcement telling her that this is a call that was destined for Jim, and then she's connected to the caller. She can have a chat to the caller, and depending how she feels about that caller, she's got a number of choices. She can just say, "Thanks very much, but we're not interested, goodbye," and terminate the call. She can press a key on her phone to block the caller and put their number onto Jim's block list, which means they won't ever be able to get this far again. She can send the caller to voicemail so they can leave a message for Jim, or she can allow the caller through to Jim. Or she can allow the caller through to Jim and put their number onto Jim's allow list. So there are lots of options, very, very flexible. Sounds a bit complicated, it's not in practice. So let's say this is a legitimate caller. Let's say it's the garage calling up to ask about the MOT on Jim's car. Sarah presses the key. trueCall puts Sarah and the caller on hold and now calls Jim. When Jim picks up, they're all connected in a conference, and Sarah can speak to Jim and say, "Hi Dad, the garage is on the line here, they want to talk to you about the MOT." And she can sort of announce the caller and hand the call over. And then either she can stay on the line or she can drop out of the call and leave the call to continue. So it's a very flexible new mechanism for handling calls from unrecognised caller called Screen via Carer. So how is the trueCall SIM service delivered? Well, you, the user or their carer, can control the service via the Internet Control Panel in a very similar way that you do with trueCall boxes, or you can use an app on a smartphone or a tablet. And this will allow you to change the call handling settings, review the call logs, edit the block and allow lists, and edit any other trueCall setting. There's also a phone number you can dial to record your own personal greetings. The statistics from the trueCall SIMs are fed into a database and are included in your monthly reports and infographics. This allows you to keep an eye on how those trueCall SIM cards are performing. In practice, the way that this works is that you provide the vulnerable person with a new SIM card. Now, the SIM card is a multi-network card. This means it works with all the different telephone networks. So if it can't find a signal on one network, it'll use another one. And this gives you the maximum possible coverage. We can port to the user's existing phone number to their trueCall SIM card if they want. And they can fit the card to their existing phone, or we can provide an easy to use flip phone for them if they don't have an existing mobile phone. These flip phones are absolutely fantastic for older people. They have big buttons, they're easy to use, so when the phone rings, you open up the clamshell. When you want to hang up at the end of the call, you close the clamshell. So it's very simple, you don't have lots of instructions to remember. It fits snugly into a cradle for charging, and it's also got an emergency SOS feature. So there's a button on the back of the phone that if they press that button and hold it down, if they get into trouble, there's also an emergency SOS feature. There's a button on the back of the phone. If they press that and hold it down for about 3 seconds, it will send their carer, son, daughter, neighbour, whoever, a text message saying that they're in trouble, and will also make a call to them. And that can be really, really useful for vulnerable people. The packages we're offering, the tariff for this SIM card gives you 500 meg of data, 500 minutes of calls, and 500 text messages a month. And that sort of plan would be sufficient for most older people. If they want that without a phone, then we can offer a 6-month package of all of that for £100. If they do want a flip phone included, then it's £135. And at the end of that 6-month term, the user, if they choose, can extend the service on a 1-month rolling contract basis for £15 a month. They're not tied into a long contract. Literally, they pay £15 at the beginning of the month for the service for that month, and at any time they can stop. The only thing to be aware of is if the user is already in a contract, they may need to make a payment to break it or wait till it's finished. Most of the people we're talking to are on pay-as-you-go SIM cards already, so that's not an issue. But I wanted to flag that up. We're putting together a package now for authorities to try it out in their local area. So this is a bit of a sort of a starter pack option for everyone. What we can do is give you a pack of 5 SIM cards. Each of them has got 6 months service on them, and 2 flip phones, and that's 570 plus VAT. And that gives you a chance to dip your toe in the water and try it out and see how it works. If you do have a project and you're thinking of doing this and wanted to just quickly give it a try beforehand, we can provide you with a free trial SIM and phone to check it all out before you commit to that 570. Thanks very much for listening. I hope you found that useful and that you have had an opportunity to use trueCall SIM in your area. If you have any comments about it, any questions, or you'd like to place an order, just give me a call or drop me an email at the regular addresses that are there. Thank you.